Hello and welcome. My name is Denise Washington, and I am the host of this podcast, Sharing the Wisdom.
Getting older is not a curse. We're going to be doing something a little different tonight. Instead of having three elders, we are going to have three elders, but we have two very accomplished and beautiful young women that are just going to ask us questions, and we're just going to have a conversation back and forth. But let me introduce the guests, and we're going to start with the young ones first. First, Elaina Monique, a singer, composer, lyricist, educator, spiritualist, and diviner. In October of 2022, she released her EP, Kismet, which was featured in World is Bond and Zone Nights magazines. She is a wife, a mother of five earthly star seeds. I love that. And one ancestor. Just as a disclaimer, Elaina Monique is my niece. Next, Tenica. Tenica is a wife and mother of two. She is trying to balance it all as a full-time compliance professional. She enjoys traveling and spending time with her loved ones. Disclaimer here, I have worked with Tenica for about 7 years, and the types of conversation that we're having tonight, her and I had many of those conversations behind closed doors in my office. Next, here comes the elder squad. Doreen. I have known Doreen since 2013. That's 10 years. We started together as coding analysts for a company in New Jersey. She ultimately left the company. I changed jobs and then left. After that time, we have become fast friends. Doreen has seen me at my worst and my best, and guess what? She still wants to hang out with me. Amazing. Welcome, Doreen. Coach Donna. Coach Donna has a YouTube channel, Savvy Soldier. She's also hosting a retreat, Jumpstart Your Sojourn, which is a luxury retreat. It explores mind, body, spirit, and finances. It's held January 25th through the 29th in 2024. It's going to be in Lake Chapala and Guadalajara, Mexico. And all this information I will have at the end of this video. Debbie.
Yes. Hey.
Debbie is my cousin. I'm going to put that up front. She is a retired educator, although she would say she was retired. However, she's influencing a very young mind in her own home currently. Her granddaughter, who was born maybe age 25, Sophia. She raised 3 children with her husband, and she spent many years raising them in Tanzania, which gives them a very global outlook. Debbie has been influential in my life since that first day I met her on Mother's Day in 1967. Welcome, ladies, welcome. It is my pleasure, my joy, my honor to have you here tonight because I know everyone's time is valuable. So for you to give this time to me, I want to thank you ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Now I'm just going to open up with a quote. Well, 2 quotes that I think will lead in very well to our first question. The first is a quote by Emma Watson. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to be who I really am. I'm going to then take time to figure out what that is. The next is by Michelle Obama. One of the lessons that I grew up with was I will always stay true to myself and never let what anyone else says distract you from your goal. And I think that leads very nicely into the first question that was submitted by Elaina. And I have a feeling that this question is going to take us up and down many roads. So back to you, Elaina Monique.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Denise. And I'm very, very, very grateful to be on this panel and sharing the wisdom, learning the wisdom and sharing anything that I have to give on this podcast. So my first question, I have two, but I'll share the first. And yes, it was a perfect segue into the quotes that Aunt Denise shared. And I'm going to call her Aunt Denise on this podcast because I don't know any better. So, okay. My question is, when did you begin living your life? Whose life were you living before then, and why?
Who would like to take that question first?
That definitely is a loaded question.
Uh-huh.
When did I begin living my life? I'm going to say I started in my early, maybe mid-20s. But when I think about what it was that I was doing, I had just graduated from college and was entering into what I call the real adult world with real job. And that was my profession as a registered nurse. My mother told me as I was growing up that I told her when I was 5 years old that I wanted to be a nurse when I grow up. I don't know what influenced that. It could have been my aunt who suffered with diabetes and ended up being blind. It could have been a near-death experience when I experienced a disease that covered me from the crown of my head to the soles of my feet. When I think about it, I can sometimes smell the sickness or the death that was associated with that skin disorder. I remember my skin when I would lift my head from my mother's white sheets, part of my flesh was still on the bed. And they had taken me to the doctor, and the doctor says, we don't know what it is. And so they sent me home to die, but I had a praying mother. That could have been the experience that said, I want to be a nurse when I grow up. But I said it at the age of 5. And as I was going through high school, there was some times when I was thinking about changing my mind, but my mother kept reminding me, you said that you wanted to be a nurse when you were 5. You said you wanted to be a nurse when you were a little girl. And that scripture that says, train up a child in the way that they should go so that when they grow old, they don't depart from it. My mother, I don't know if she knew she was doing that, but that's what I felt happened, is that she heard what I wanted, or she heard the desires in my heart as a child, and she made sure that I remembered what I said, and I eventually became a registered nurse. I still hold my license. However, I no longer work for a government building their empire. I work for myself building my empire so that my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren can have a different perspective, because I don't believe in the American dream that we were told as a young person. You know, it's a mirage, it's a lie, and it's a way to keep us enslaved or bondage to somebody else's dream. So I'll stop there.
So I'm thinking, thank you for sharing that. That gives a lot of context, and maybe it paints it, not maybe it perhaps paints the picture of the focus that you had, because life experiences, especially medical ones, can change our perspective and mature us faster than our peers. So that was it. I also want to know. I was on a Zoom call yesterday, and one of my elders was asked the question, said she was asking this question to a group of high-powered women. She said, what part of you did you leave at the door before you stepped into the meeting? So in that context, what part of yourself you felt like you had to leave behind when you stepped into the church or any place of worship or in the school or in the hospital? What part of yourself in that regard were you leaving behind, or that you were not showing up, revealing and letting live when you had to walk in certain spaces? And when did you come to that point where you no longer, okay, no, she's coming with me, she's wherever I go? That moment.
I'm going to say that moment probably did not happen until just before I retired from the traditional job of reporting, showing up every day, where I was totally just at a point where I said, okay, I'm going to do what my heart desires. This place, this bureaucracy, this institution limits my capability of doing what it is I really want to do. And that is to empower people to know their tags, to know their talents, their abilities, their gifts, and their strengths. So if you're not going to let me do that in this capacity, I'm going to walk away and build my own empire and teach my children, my grandchildren, and my great grandchildren. I have 3 great granddaughters, and I'm expecting my first great grandson next month. So I want them to know what it is that's in their heart, and not wait until they're in their 50s, in their 60s, or even 70s to do what it is that they know that they were created to do. We were all created for something. I believe that with my total being. Before my mother knew me, before I was knitted in her womb, I had a purpose, I had a destiny, I had a calling on my life. And so often we get caught up in the infrastructure of society doing what they said we should do, corralling us to be obedient, to follow the rules, and to not use our brains, not to follow our heart, because they got us caught up in doing what it is that they want us to do. I mean, they took out math, finances, and certain educational pieces way back when you had these rich people in power, who still their generations are still in power. We were not to be thinkers, we were to be workers, because they had an agenda for us. So I said, no, I'm not going to let my people. So I'm the sojourner of my family. I'm the one that left the country. I'm the one that's paving the way for them, because I don't know if the U.S. is going to always be a safe place. It's not. It's not for my Black brothers. It's not for a lot of my Black sisters. So what are we going to do? Are we just going to sit and stay where we were planted, or are we going to pave the way so that we have options?
I like to answer to Elena's question. I just started, and I'm in my 60s, living my best life. And it's not because I was living somebody else's life. It's because I brought into the myth that was taught to me. The myth, you get an education, you get a good job, and you stay, 20, 30 years. So, you know, that program was taught to me as a child, and it was taught to me, all of my adult years. And it wasn't until recently, until now, I realized that it was a false. It was a false belief. So now in my 60s, I'm like, no, that's a false belief, and then I also feel it, like, okay, you um, it's not the way to win, by um, following that formula that was given to me. So at this point in my life, I'm still working. I haven't retired yet, but I'm still working. And at this point in my life, I'm really looking at um, living my life and doing the things that I want to do, that I really have a passion for. So it's now for me, and I spent so many years, once again, just following the myth, the formula that was given to me. So I'm free now. I'm free of that.
And you sound very light when you said that.
Yes.
Again, Elaina and Tenica, just pop in for additional questions, clarifications. This is for you. Okay.
A lot of times, especially I was a young mother, so a lot of times it started out as you're living for your kids. And that's even now I'm in that space where I now have a toddler and a young adult. So I'm still living for my children, and I'm trying to find that balance of living the best life, living for my kids, and all that, serving my community, serving myself, because I have to pour into me first, right? So where do you find the balance, or what did you wish someone said, you know what, the house doesn't have to be clean all the time? Because and the other layer of it for me is that I grew up in the islands. So as a islander, we were taught that you could be dying, but you're still going to show up. Work has to get done. The house has to get cleaned. All this have to get done. You have to pull up your bootstraps and do it. So that's a struggle, continuing to do that, and not being able to pour into you. But you can't pour into others unless you kind of fill your own cup. So, yeah.
Well, I want to ask the elders, do you see that younger women are making the space? I know working in gyms, I am seeing a lot more younger women, pregnant, with children, coming to the gym. Now, for me, that was a foreign concept.
Right. Me
Of when
too.
my children were younger, I thought I was doing something big. I'm going for a 30-minute walk. But
Right.
now I see women who are pregnant. And I started to work out. Well, I was working out. And when I became pregnant with my son, all the women in my family told me, you're going to this is going to be a detriment to his health. You shouldn't do that. And I gave it up, which was a detriment to my health. But
Yes.
I am seeing more women now that are making the time, because I'll talk to them during class and they're saying, well, they have a 4-year-old. And I'm just amazed. And do you think that it relates to possibly women seeing their mothers work themselves to the bone, exhausted? And I don't want to say no payoff for the mother. And I'm just saying that in a broad term. I'm not saying that motherhood isn't worth it. It is. But they're seeing their mothers work themselves to the ends and then dying in regret or being too ill to enjoy the rest of their lives. Is anybody or any of the elders, have you seen that? More younger women making time for themselves, because I always applaud it.
I think
I'm
it's
not sure, because I
education.
wonder how much of that is income driven. I mean, are the people that you're seeing able to stay home and have a nanny to take care of the kid
No,
while they go to
no,
the gym?
they are not. No, they are not the nanny crowd. No. Mm-mm.
Mm.
They are the same. I would presume, and I'm making an assumption about certain things that I do know about them. Same
Yeah.
socioeconomic status, whatever that is, because that's man-made, that
Mhm.
I was.
Mm-hmm.
But I know for myself, it was like, ooh, do I say do $75 a month, which I could afford, to join this gym, or oh, Jordan wants to do fill in the blank. I'll do that first, and then I'll come back and do me.
I think the
Yeah.
younger population is not willing to put their life on hold as we did, as or I'll speak for myself, as I did, and that's one of the reasons I started coaching women that are 55 and over, to tell them, don't put your life on perpetual pause for family. Don't put your life on perpetual pause for job. Don't put your life on perpetual pause for whatever. Like Tamika said, you have to take care of yourself. If I'm not healthy, how can I have healthy kids?
Mm-hmm.
I have a niece who has put herself through school, and she's now a doula. And she's a young doula, mom of two. And she's incorporating her children into understanding the importance of taking care of yourself. So when she's doing her yoga, her daughter, Sage Grace, is doing her yoga as well. They don't look the same, but the concept is being put in her at a toddler's age. Baby, take care of yourself. Mommy's going to take care of herself. You're going to learn to take care of yourself. So I think it's it's a different mindset of the younger women. They're more educated. The myths have been dispelled, and they're taking responsibility in being a healthier individual, so that the ones that they love can also be healthy.
Debbie, I'm going to get back to you with that question, but I want to ask Elaina. Elaina, do you want to pop in here?
Mm. Well, uh, I birthed 6 children, and 5 are earth side, one crossed, and I followed more of my mother's pattern of being self-sacrificing and putting myself last, and it landed me in the hospital. It landed me just feeling like I was going to lose my mind and just reaching a breaking point. And I'm grateful that I'm grateful for the experience because I knew something had to give. I had to do something, and so I started doing more for myself and prioritizing myself and being selfish. And that is a powerful word because that's something that we don't subscribe to. I don't hear a lot of people saying, yes, I'm selfish and I'm proud of it. I never heard that. It's something you should be ashamed of. It's usually an accusation hurled at you. So I had to learn, and I'm grateful for it because my mornings are for me. I wake very early, and my music is my meditation. Um, my prayers and my speaking to my ancestors at my altar is my meditation, and receiving all the messages and downloads that they're giving me for the day, for the week, to carry me forward. And that's my power. And I do work out. I worked out this morning as well. So making myself the priority. And like you said, Coach Donna, how is anyone else going to be healthy and all right if you're not? And I see the difference that the healthier me, the happier me. Everyone in this house is healthier and happier. And we need to, and sometimes that was my motivation, that I wanted to be a better mother. I wanted to be a better wife. I wanted to do this for them. And one of my mentors told me, no, this has to be about you. And she was a mother too. And I said, well, no, it has to be about them. But what do you mean? And she said, no, it has to be about you. And the residual effect is always there. They will be happier. They will be greater. Everything, when you're good, everything else is good. But you have to be the priority. You have to be the focus. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation and reiterating these things. And it's just repeating itself, how we understand that we must make ourselves the priority. And, I'm grateful that it wasn't something that I was finding out on my deathbed. Yeah. I'm grateful.
Yeah. Okay, Debbie, come on in.
No, I'm. It's really hard for me to relate to some of the things that are being said. Not that I agree that we need to prioritize ourselves and look after ourselves, but sometimes circumstances make it impossible. Sometimes you can't prioritize yourself. Sometimes you have to put your kids first because it can be a matter of life or death. And that was my situation. I had 3 kids, 2 and under, because 2 were born very prematurely and they got very sick and were in the hospital for a long time. And my husband traveled for weeks and months on end overseas. So a lot of times it was just me, running back and forth to the NICU. When they got out, having the respiratory therapists and the physical therapists come in. I mean, it was crazy. So I really literally had no time to prioritize myself, no time to go to the gym, too exhausted to even work out on the floor because I never slept. So I think in order to really truly prioritize yourself in certain circumstances, you need a lot of support. If that support is not there, you can forget about it till the kids are a little bit more self-sufficient and developed, So it was always a dilemma for me. I guess I didn't start living for myself until we moved overseas to Tanzania, when my sons were 18 months old and my daughter was 3.5. Yeah, we moved to Tanzania, where I had a lot of help, and the culture was much more kid-centered. So there were more hands and more welcoming people. Like if you went to somebody's house for a party, they wanted you to bring your children because they're very family-oriented people in general. So it really depends on the circumstances. That's all I'm saying. But I admire, women who actually can drop everything and take care of themselves so that they can remain whole through this whole parenting, mothering, spousing process.
Now, I'm just going to interject here, Debbie, because it's very interesting. I think that you realize that rest and taking care of yourself was important because along that time, somewhere in there, is when I had Jordan. You were the only person that told me you are going to be dog tired.
Mm,
Whenever you can take a nap.
right.
And you know what? I heard it, but I put on that cape. The cape had the S on the back, and
Hmm.
I was going to do it on 2 hours sleep.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And that extended, of course, to maybe 18 months. But which is interesting, you were the only person that called me. I remember that distinctly. And you said, sit down and take a nap.
Yeah, you have
And
to,
I
but
didn't.
you have to.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just to let you know, I would make a pot of coffee at midnight so that I would be a friendly person for the 2 a.m. feeding. That was me. Because nobody
Okay.
ever slept. Somebody was always awake. I'm just
Right.
telling you. And I would, taking a nap, yeah, you have to. You have to sleep because that's the thing that you're deprived of most when your children are small is sleep.
It's sleep. Yeah.
And that will
Because
drive
they,
you crazy, yeah. So I'm glad you listened to me, even though I wasn't really following my own advice. I still
oh,
believe
I
in
didn't say, no, I heard you. I didn't listen.
You didn't
I
listen.
heard
Oh.
you because I too had entered that phase of, excuse my French, I felt like I was shoveling shit. That's
Right.
all it felt like. I was changing somebody's diaper, doing this here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So if you ladies could take anything from that, please begin to live your life now. Don't wait.
Yeah, that when she was talking about the children in the MIC unit, and I was thinking about my mom, how she told us, I'm the oldest of 9 children. And at one time, my mom had 4 children under the age of 4, and 3 of them were in diaper. Now, she wasn't using Pampers or Huggies. She was
Right.
using cloth diapers, and she breastfed all of us. My dad was a traveling evangelist. So in old school back then, I don't know how she did it. And matter of fact, I told her when I was growing up, I said, I'm not having 1/3 of what you had. Now she wanted to have 12 children. She was from a large family of 11. So she wanted a football team, but she ended up with a baseball team. She had 9. But yeah, back then the focus was on being a wife, being submissive, raise the children, but it costs. Oftentimes it costs. As a mom, you can slip into postpartum depression. I mean, you can slip into so many mental spaces that are not healthy. So I'm glad that as we have grown, we have matured, we have educated ourselves, and I'm not saying that you put yourself first at the risk of your child, but you have to put yourself first at the promotion of both you and the baby being healthy, and the rest of the family being healthy. And I think the younger generation, if they got people like you in position or in their life, they're able to do that at a better pace than what we did as we were coming up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I take care of my granddaughter now because my daughter is working full time. And she's still stressed out because of work, but at least she doesn't have to worry about her daughter,
Right.
because I'm taking care of her like I would take care of my own babies. She's one of my babies. So
Mm-hmm.
I think when my mother was coming up, when she was raising me, she had more support because our families were more
Yeah.
intact and in touch. So she had her sister and aunties and people who would lend a hand. My grandmother, helped raise me. She moved in with us. I don't think that young people really have that these days either. I don't know. I don't know if they do or not. I'm kind of out of touch. I'm sorry to say.
No problem. Elaina and Tanika, do you feel? I know I felt that, well, part of it was because I had moved almost 2 states away.
Yes,
So there
yes.
was nobody nearby to assist with the hands. Everybody was in Queens or Brooklyn, made it harder. And whereas for myself, my mother had my grandparents who basically just took over.
Right.
So they watched me. First, it was just to be on the weekends. than it was, well, while they were at work. And my grandmother said, well, it makes no sense for you to come by here every day, take her home, and then bring her back in the morning. Why don't you just leave her?
Right.
And that started 5 of the best years of my life. And then I developed a really strong tie with the 2 of them. And not only that, the elders that were in the area also. Because who played with me during the day? The old retired people, which was great. Which was great. I don't know. Did Debbie, did you answer whose life you were living
Oh
before
well,
then?
whose life was I didn't live my own life for many years because in my generation, our parents went through we're going through Jim Crow, segregation, all of that stuff. And my grandparents, like your grandparents, went through Reconstruction, which was a brutal time.
Yeah,
So by the time I was born, they expected us, our generation, to break all those barriers that they had been fighting all that time. So as soon as the door was open, they pushed us through, no
yeah,
matter how hard or uncomfortable it was for us or how stressful. We had something to prove, they felt. So as soon as, for example, institutions of higher learning became to started to desegregate, they just
right.
pushed us into a lot of environments that weren't necessarily favorable for us. I would say. I would say. And we had something to prove, and we went through a lot. And the difference in the way I approach my kids, I just said, you go to your own school. I was under a lot of pressure to go to the best schools and do the best and do all of this stuff. You just go out and do you. You don't have anything to prove. We know that Black people can be extremely intelligent and capable and competent people. We don't have to go and stress ourselves out to prove anything to anybody. You just be yourself in your own right. Go to your own school, pursue your own passions, pick your own job, do what you want to do. So that's how I changed. I mean, I wasn't going to repeat the same things that
Mhm.
my parents did. At the same time, I have an appreciation for why they did the things that they did,
Yeah.
why they pushed us so hard. I mean, I don't know. Do you feel that way, Denise?
Each year, I understand better my mother's motives
Yes.
because Debbie and I had mothers that they would drag us anywhere at any time, throw us. We could have been the only girl, Black
The only,
person.
the only
It,
Black
it,
person.
it didn't matter. It didn't matter. It was like, I paid for this. You're going to go do it and you're going to have a good time and you're going to do well. There you go. And there are many experiences that, yes, that I have, and I can thank her for to have that foresight because a lot of this was things that she could not do.
Right.
But there was a little bit of inherent pressure there
Yes.
to perform. And I didn't want my children to feel like they were marionettes. And not that I felt that way, but I didn't want to, okay, this is what I'm going to have you do because I want you to ultimately work in an office or be a doctor. Well, those are the 2 choices. Either you're going to be this super professional or you're just going to be like everyone else. And I too have had to make hard choices with me not saying, like, I have a daughter. Avery is so good in sciences and math. She had people in college telling her, "Oh, you teach this better than the professor." So I figured, pay dirt. You can get into STEM. You can do this. You can do that. And she said, "But that's not what I want to do." And for the longest time, to be honest, I did. I made music less than, even though I understood the pathway to math and music, same one, until I saw her perform. And I saw the joy in her face and the love and the care. And when she finished her senior recital at Mount Holyoke, I went over to her and I gave her a hug and I said, I get it now. I get it. I understand. And her music teacher, who was my age, said, I wish my mother would have said that to me now.
Wow.
And she is very content with music. And this is where she's going to be. And I had to understand that, yes, somebody who tells you, my son at 17, I'm going to teach parkour. Well, what the heck is that? And when he said it and walked away, George and I looked at each other and said, he can be broke all his life. Well, no, that's not it. That isn't it. They're going to make a way just like we did. I am not going to spend too much time for myself about when did I begin to live my life, but I'm going to tell you, I did it in stages. When I first had my children, I then began to set boundaries. I couldn't set boundaries before. Once I had them, I began to set boundaries because there were certain things that I knew I didn't want my children to see, hear, or experience. Then there was a very long period of time where my husband became ill, I became a caregiver, and I had gained about 100 pounds. And that's lasted maybe 10 years, and I was kind of stagnant. But once I began to take care of me and just start walking and joining an exercise program, as I began to shed the weight, I then began to realize these kids are getting older. What am I going to do when they graduate? They're not going to need me to take them soon to band practice, to kinjitsu, whatever. When I really came into my own, because again, like I said, it wasn't just one thing, it was progressive for me, was in 2016 when my husband passed away. And he had told me, now you're going to have time to do all those things that you couldn't do because you became a wife, you became a parent. He said you could. Now, I did not want to hear that then. I didn't even want to own up to what was happening. And it really took me a full year before I was able to get like this over the grief and say, well, wait a minute, I can. Which is now the person that you see now that wants to travel, wants to try these crazy things, wants to hike, wants to, hang off the side of mountains climbing. This is where it is for me. And I can honestly tell you that by living that other life, and honestly, whose life was I living? What I saw and what I was told. Because I'll be honest, I did not feel I had a choice as far as whether or not I was going to get married or have children. If I got married, then I would have children. If I didn't, I wouldn't have children, period. Dot. But everybody told me this is what we do. And I actually had people tell me in my family, this is what we do. Now, other people hadn't. I didn't realize it. But yeah, other people hadn't. But I was told this is what we do. And I followed that for very many years. No one told me that this person here even existed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, live your life as soon as you can. Again, we're not saying neglect your children. We're not saying don't love them and take good care of them, but take care of you also.